use of it, such that we can give a reductive account. Like take truth, for instance, like, okay, if you want to do an account, like let's say you want to give a reductive account of truth or something like that. Okay, you're going to have to reduce truth down to some set of properties. Okay, well, what's a property? Well, property is just something that's true of something, right? So you're not going to be able to like list out, some necessary and sufficient conditions for some proposition to be true, because to do that, again, you just have to be talking about what's true of truth. But I'd like to say that the term truth refers to something. There's a concept behind it, etc. And that when we use truth language, we're still like successfully communicating.
I think when we're using truth language, it's generally the case that we're being redundant. I think if you believe in like a reductionist kind of truth, you probably agree with that. Like if I say something like X is true, that's the same as saying X, right? Or it's like so the is true there doesn't really like give you anything extra. There's not like an extra piece of information that's being added there, and so it doesn't make much sense to say there's an extra concept being added there.
Yeah, I agree with semantic deflationism. Yeah, but I also take like this thesis called the cognitive identity thesis, which is like, the thought that P or the belief that P is the same as the belief that it is true that P, right? Like, I just think about it. There's no case where someone believes that P that they don't believe that it's true that P. I think it's just like, I think we agree there. So if this account's true, then I guess the notion of truth is presupposed in all inquiry, right? Because just to have some belief, something like that, that's just already going to employ the notion of truth. And then to give some account of truth, you're already going to be employing the notion of truth as well. Like if you say, I believe that X, where X is some reductive account of truth, okay, you'd already be employing the notion of truth. Yeah, so that's why I don't think an account can be given of truth. Same with existence. I don't know if there's an account that can be given of existence.
Well, I think there's like and I think there are accounts that can be given of truth, if we want to be able to give accounts of something like truth. I think that there are ways you can. I just think that it's if we're trying to give an account of like truth talk, then yeah, I just like you already agreed. There's just not like a deeper concept being referred to. But if I say something like if we're talking about like the concept of like X is true, being the same as the concept of X, right? Somebody who believes P necessarily believes P is true. Like, I think that's going to be true as well. So there's not like an additional concept there either. There's not like an additional.
There's an additional concept. Yeah. I don't think that. Yeah. I guess this might be like some confusion on like what primitivism about truth is. Yeah. It's just saying like the concept of truth, like, or the content of your belief that P is just identical to your belief that is true that P. And then if that's what truth is, well, then it's employed even in giving some analysis of truth. I also think existence is a good example, like I was saying, like, if I told you, like, you can also do like a cognitive content thing with it. Like, if I told you, like, oh, imagine a chair. Go, now imagine a chair that exists. Right, that's not like adding anything. But I take it that, like, there's not really a reductive account of existence.
Well, that seems to add something. That does seem to add something. So if I was to, so here's an example, right? If I was to imagine, I don't know, if I was to imagine like a 200-foot tall chair that like orbits the moon or something, right? All of these traits are, or imagine like a 200-foot tall chair that's like glowing pink and it like changes colors every 3 seconds. Like that chair doesn't exist, right? There's no actual chair that's indexed to. So to imagine a chair and to imagine a chair that exists are different. If I imagine like the chair in my living room, that would fulfill the task. But if I imagine this like 200-foot tall glowing pink chair that like that has like a hue rotation color or something to it, that wouldn't be a chair that exists. There's no chair that's like that.
Yeah, well, I just want to get clear, like, so by exist there, we're taking it in the actual world. So like I said, like, imagine a chair, right in front of you right now, something like that. Me telling you to imagine a chair that exists right in front of you right now isn't adding anything. So yeah, if you just get clear on the details of the case, I don't think I think it's clear that nothing's being added. And so, I mean, I take it that like that's why I think that the like reductive account of existence can't really be given either. I mean, I think there's like, I can like, do you agree with me that like there's no reductive account of existence there?
I'm not sure. I think I'm agnostic on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm agnostic on if there's a reductive account of existence. I think it's so. It seems like it seems like with the chair example, the issue does end up being like, yeah, to exist, it has to be indexed to the actual world. I don't think that things non-actually exist, right? If a thing, like imagine some random thing that's actual, that seems to me to be the same thing as imagining something that exists. Seems like if I said like imagine something that's actual and exists, then that seems redundant. It seems like it's the case that we're saying the same thing as if we just say imagine something that's actual or imagine something that exists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree there. Yeah, it's just like if you give the case of like the chair in front of you or something,
Mm-hmm.
it's clear that there actually isn't anything being added. Because when you add right in front of you right now, that makes you think it's like actual. Right. Yeah, if that's baked in. But yeah, so I'm not sure if a reductive account of existence can be given. But like presumably, maybe well, I don't know if you'd agree with this conditional. Like if there is no account to be given of truth, there is no reductive account to be given of truth, right? It's not going to follow that there is no concept of truth.
There's no reductive account and there's no concept.
Yeah.
Sorry, is it meant to be taken? This is autistic, but is it meant to be taken as a counterfactual or as like a material condition?
Okay. I'm not sure. Just put it like I'm not sure. Just give me what you'd think on both, I guess.
On the counterfactual, I lean towards that not being true. But on the material conditional, I think that it probably is a true condition.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then maybe we just have different thoughts there, because I think like not being able to give some account of what existence is really isn't an issue.
Oh no. Let me correct. Yeah, I don't think it's the case that like, it's an issue for the viewer of not being able to give one. But I think it like isn't like you're not able to. But I do think it would be an issue if it was like not logically possible for there to be one.
Yeah, but you're not able to. I mean, like in a general sense, like there is no reductive account to be given by anybody.
Yeah, I don't think in words you can get one, but I think that like I have one in my head. For some concepts which I couldn't give one. That I couldn't give one verbally, or they probably couldn't even be given verbally within English.
Yeah, that's how it feels for like the self, for me, right? Like, so I'm not sure there's some account could give verbally, but I feel like I have this concept. I feel like at least at minimum, like whether or not the concept is fictitious or whatever, definitely exists.
I feel like I have a concept too. And yeah, for self in particular, I feel like I have that concept too. But then I think about it, and it's like I've got good reason to be lied to, right? It's like if the only way I know something is because, like my mom told me it when I was like 8 years old, and it just so happens to be the kind of thing that's really good for getting children to behave. Then like I'd probably be like, well, I don't. Turns out I don't believe that it's illegal to turn the lights on in the back of the car anymore. To give one example.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could just take something where like, and maybe this is where the Morian shift comes in. Okay, but you could take it that like, that if there is no Hesedi, right, such that there's like no difference to be made between certain objects over other objects at all. I mean, I'm trying to think. Maybe you could get to some self-defeat thing, but also you could just say like, I mean, it's so plausible that there's different objects that like this evolutionary story isn't really moving me over. Like, and you could say, well, maybe you don't agree with this. Like, you think that like someone could give some like, evolutionary debunking argument or something against like moral realism, what you would want to say is like the pieces of evidence, like the evolutionary debunking argument is like weak compared to the pieces of evidence that count in favor of realism, such that we'd favor realism over anti-realist views.
Well, I would say if it was the case that like moral. Yeah, I would say that the case that like the Evo debunking argument would succeed if it was the case that there was like maybe you're saying like it's just one piece of evidence against it or something. In that case, I'd probably say like, yeah, that's the case that there's at least one piece of evidence against moral realism to the Evo debunking argument. It's just that it's really weak evidence, given that like our moral intuitions are most likely to conform with what causes us to have evolutionary success in the places where they're like the most divergent from what seems to actually it seems to end up being the moral fact.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Then someone could say like, I don't know what I think. Like if they're giving some even looking against utilitarianism, they'd say like, oh, well, it makes sense that we'd have like some pleasure, like punishment, or some like reward, reprimands like mechanism, right? So that like things that benefit our survival and give us a certain type of feeling, and things that don't give us this other type of feeling, right? And it's also expected that one of these feelings is more motivating than another feeling.
Oh, I just feel like that's not even a Evo debunking argument. That's just a concession. Right? That's just like, yeah, I completely agree that we've like evolved the feelings. It's just that there are certain types of feelings that feel good, and evolution has hijacked those, and there are some types that feel bad, hijack those as well.
Well, no,
and so there's
wait,
valence to these that exists outside. Like,
well, no, to be clear,
yeah.
so evolutionary debunking arguments is going to say like it's expected under the evolutionary hypothesis that we would think pleasure is good and that pain is bad.
That we would think. No, it seems like it's more reasonable. So I would agree that there's like we'd expect this if it was the case that there. You know what? No, I don't think it would. I don't think we would expect there to be an experience of like a first-hand experience on the evolutionary account if it's the case the quality doesn't exist. I don't understand why we would have like why our brains would find it more efficient to trick us into believing that there's a good or bad first-hand experience as opposed to there just being no first-hand experience at all.
Mm-hmm. I guess that gets maybe that's not as much of a problem for an identity theorist. Yeah, maybe if you believe in qualia, that's going to be weirder. I mean, that would just get into like giving some account of why we became sentient in the first place or something. I mean, the idea would probably be like pleasure and pain are very strong motivating forces or something like that. But yeah, then that just gets into giving some accounts of how we became sentient. If you're not an identity theorist or some linguist or something, that would be weird.
Yeah, I'm not an identity theorist.
I know that, which is why it's weird for you. Okay, maybe. Yeah, like I'd say like a similar thing for the there being some concept of like things being different from each other, right? Like I know it's really weird. I mean, like even if it's expected to some extent under like an evolutionary hypothesis that we would perceive things the way they do and like have categories the way we do, like I just think I have like very, very, very like insanely high priors on there being differences between objects.
So the high
I don't think the evolution thing like lowers it sufficiently.
Well, the high priors are also expected they're expected on the evolutionary thing. So it's evidence in favor of the evolutionary hypothesis. Now you could say something like, yeah, but I've got the high priors, right? And it being just as expected on the other hypothesis doesn't shift my view. But it seems strange to me because that seems like it's the kind of thing that you probably would shift your view, like if you think about it. Right? Like the fact that the evidence that you have, which is your intuition, ends up being really, really expected on the negation of your hypothesis, seems to me to be the kind of thing that would undercut the prior. If we take that to be the kind of thing that is what evidence is, like just the fact that there's no evidence for your view and like a lot of evidence against it, that there's like maybe weak evidence for your view and strong evidence against it. That's the kind of thing that would shift my belief, even if my prior was really high. That would be evidence that counts really strongly against, and so it would be aligning with my prior.
Well, I don't think this is. I don't know if it does undercut because if you're taking like a Morean strategy, you'd have like the plausibility of the argument against the view, like versus the priors or something, and you'd say, well, look, like okay, let's say it is supposed to undercut my intuition. Okay, well, like let's weigh the plausibility of this undercutting defeater versus the plausibility of my initial intuition, and you say something like, okay, well, maybe that undercuts it to some extent, but it doesn't just like meet the strength of my initial thing. So yeah, maybe you could take something like that, which is like shift people would take for the external world, which is like you could give some simpler hypothesis that posit. Like I take it that solipsism is like a very simple hypothesis, right? It's like positing less, and you say something like, oh, well, you could say like you're living in a dream or something, and like, oh well, there's other cases of where people thought they weren't in a dream when in reality they were in a dream. And you could say, okay, well, I mean, you have this really strong intuition. You're not, there is an external world. This gets undercut by the simpler explanation. Make similar predictions, and be like, okay, well, maybe, but I think to say that you have to weigh the plausibility of the premises.
I wouldn't answer with no
there.
I wouldn't answer with maybe. I'd answer with no. I think that the simpler explanation is just that the external world does exist.
Okay, well, then that just gets to types of simplicity. Like numerically, it's definitely not simpler.
Oh yeah, I don't think the numerical simplicity is the kind of thing that would count against a theory.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was saying I was getting to numerically, I think we agree. Yeah, so ontological simplicity. I mean, I think it's positing more kinds of things or more types of things, right?
What do we mean by that? By types of things?
It's difficult to do. It's like, I mean, we can just put in this context like, there's different like, maybe you could put it in terms of like modes or like ways of existence. Like, I know, like think of like property dualists that say there's like physical stuff.
Yeah, if we're talking about stuff. Yeah, we're talking about what ultimately are
you talking about what I was talking to you about the other day? Wasn't that you? I feel like I was talking to you with you about this.
If we're talking about stuff that just supervenes onto what is the fundamental stuff that it all supervenes onto, then my hypothesis still has just one, right? And their hypothesis still has just one. So that's not going to be like they're not going to win on ontological simplicity. We're just going to tie on that.
I mean, maybe if you're really
I think maybe it's actually I think maybe mine supervenes onto one and theirs supervenes onto a wide variety. I'm not even sure that they're equal on that. They just certainly don't win on it though. They have to have at least one type of thing. Probably multiple, I think. Oh, you're muted.
I still don't get how morality isn't a social construct or like a social something that's socially produced that changes over time with.
Yeah.
Why does it?
I just want to tie up the discussion on personal identity before I go.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, okay, yeah, maybe. Well, maybe there's some time on ontological simplicity if like the same amount of substances are being posited. I mean, the solipsists weren't. I don't know if they would give some like supervenience thing. Maybe they have some simplicity in that sense of like you're positing things that supervene and they're not. But yeah, I mean, presumably like we would take it that like, and if someone posited some like simpler skeptical scenario, that made the same predictions or something. Like that would be some piece of evidence, sure, but like we'd weigh the plausibility of the initial thing versus the plausibility of the premises of the argument against it. And so, I mean, yeah, it's just like let's the point of the Moorian thing basically. You compare the plausibility of the Moorian premise versus the plausibility of the argument against the Moorian premise.
Yeah, when I'm talking about plausibility, I don't think it's reliable to just trust my my priors alone. So like in the example of some skeptical thing they could give that's like gonna explain the observations equally well, like it ends up lining up with the observations to the same degree, and it's simpler, right? Like it's simpler in some way that's like it matters, like there being less moving parts. I would think that's just that I would just start believing. I think in most cases, I don't think I can think of a counterexample.
Okay, yeah. And then this might be a thing of like, and I put a good amount of weight on certain types of intuitions that I have. Like if I have like intuitions about these really basic things, like truth existing, even though there's no kind of it, or like differences between objects existing, or something. Like if I'm not able to do that, then I have a lot of problems for my worldview. So I have like a really high probability on it. Like, you could say something like, there being differences between objects might even be like indispensable for like certain types of sciences.
If what you mean when you, if what you mean when you say truth existing is like that there are some things which are true. I don't actually think you can make this argument. I don't think you can make an argument against that there are some things that are true. I don't think it's possible to. Because the moment you assert that one thing is true, you've conceded, right? The moment you assert that your argument's true, it's a concession. If you mean truth exists, isn't truth exist independently from like some standard, maybe that's different. But if you mean truth exists as in there are statements which are true, then that's just going to be like there's not going to be an argument that against it that doesn't beg the question in favor of. So I don't think you can. I don't think you can make this some critique.
Yeah, it's just like an issue with a lack of reductive kind of truth, and like presumably if there is no only one sec.
I'm sorry.
You could say there's no truth except that truth is not a thing.
Well, yeah, all pieces of evidence are 100% expected on the hypothesis truth exists, and 0% expected on the hypothesis truth does not exist, including truth not existing.
Okay, yeah, I gotta go. I got 1 sec, but what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I was gonna say like, even if there is no account to be given, some sort of concepts like when caused me to take an issue some of those concepts, and also like I mean maybe you're fine with this. I think it might even get into like some self-defeating territory to deny that there are differences like between concepts like objects or like things like that.
I think there are differences between concepts. I don't think I don't think you have aseity in concept. So like
okay.
Like I think it's just I think it's like the differences would just be informational differences. So it'd be like if I was to say something like there is a like what's the difference between like Webster's dictionary and Oxford dictionary, right? Like what's the difference in the pages? I would say there's probably like one will have different words than the other one, or like have different definitions for those words. So like the keys and the values will be different.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's. But what makes like Oxford Dictionary A different than Oxford Dictionary B? Right, like calling just imagine two like.
What makes the information different?
What makes the information different? So I feel like I'm not interested in the question. You're asking like what makes like the word red different from the word blue?
Yeah, because you're like, this is like the line I'm going now.
The fact I guess what I'd say is like the fact that they're not the same. But that doesn't really give you much. If you ask me like how are they not the same, I would just say like it seems that it's the kind of thing where it's probably primitive. So like there's some like but it's also the kind of thing that's going to be both expected on and off my view, right? So I don't think it's the kind of thing where I have any issue there. Yeah, like I don't think you can run the Eva debunking argument against this because the moment you do,
I'm not trying to run an Eva debunking thing. It's like if it would just take the view that like there are no distinctions, there are no differences between objects or something. Like you reject like if I say, well, I take it that you hold sort of that kind of view. Well, okay, that's going to apply to like mental entities as well, right? And that's also going to apply to concepts, right? So if there really are no differences between mental states, like I can't say this set of desires instead of this other set of desires. Well, okay, now we have issues in terms of distinction between concepts. If we can't distinguish between concepts, we can't establish a difference between like it seems conceptually difficult to establish some difference between true propositions and false propositions. Like that sounds like that would be an issue.
Well, if it's the case that you can't establish a difference between true propositions and false propositions, then it wouldn't be the case that you could establish a difference between my view being false and my view being true. And so, like whatever view you take on my view, it would be the case that there's not going to be a distinction between that and you taking the view that my view is taking the view that my view is true.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even seem like it could be a problem for the view. It doesn't seem like there can be problems for views on that view. Yeah. Oh, also, now that I think about it, I don't think it's primitive. I think the account I'd give is that it's maybe an infinite regress, but not primitive. So, like, to say something like A is different from B would be like saying something like there are attributes of A which are not identical to the attributes of B. And then we can talk about some particular attribute, like maybe I could say like the name, right? Name of A is A, the name of B is B. And maybe I could say something like, okay, what makes the name A different from the name B? Be like, they're represented by different characters. And so there's like a concept, and then there's this attribute, and the attributes are not identical. And then we can keep doing this probably indefinitely.
Yeah. Which is like what I want to get to, which is like, okay, hopefully this is like the conclusion we get to. Which is like, okay, there is some concept, right? Like of objects being different from one another, even when there is no account that's going to be given. Because if for every single difference there has to be some account given of the difference, then it would lead to some type of infinite regress. So we would say, okay, well, in some cases, be able to say, okay, well, there is a difference. Not sure how to explain why. So maybe I could just do that in the case of the self, and I could say, like, just setting aside the question of whether or not it exists, like, there's some concept of the self. There's some concept of this set of mental states instead of that set of mental states, such that I could say I value this over that. Then it just gets into whether or not I'm valuing some fictitious thing, but I'm perfectly fine with employing fictitious distinctions, especially if it turns out that all distinctions are fictitious.
Well, so it doesn't seem like it turns out that all the distinctions are fictitious just because of the fact that you've dismissed this particular distinction. Like this particular distinction seems like it's like it feels like I don't want to circle the drain too much, but it seems like what we've moved to is there's this it's the case that like the distinction is one that is not going to be like thrown out on the basis of it being the kind of thing which is hard to give an account of. Which I agree. I don't think it's worth throwing out the distinction because it's hard to give an account. But that's the whole reason for the evolutionary debunking argument against it. Like,
that's why I brought this up. Because, I wanted to just real quick. I wanted to separate this from the Eva debunking argument just to see if we could get some agreement. Just like, setting it aside, like, it's clear that there is some conceptual difference. Like, whether or not that difference actually exists is separate. But like,
it's not entirely clear to me that there is a I'm not sure if we mean by conceptual differences that you can point to some things and say they're in it, and point to other things and they're like out of the group, right? Some are in and some are out. I think that's true. I'm not sure there's any kind of like rule set that you could that would be able, not that you could give, right? But like that they could be given, right? That it could even hypothetically be given, like logically.
Let's just
to describe
concretize it to. Yeah, well, that's I'm fine with not being able to give one, but just concretize this to like, the initial thing I said, which is I value some set of desires over some other set of desires. Like, so it wouldn't be clear what the distinction is there. But if I said,
what's the issue is you've baked a concept of self back into the sentence, right? So like you can say I value one set of desires over the other, but then who's valuing?
I'm agreeing. Okay. I'm agreeing that that's baking in the self. So I'm agreeing that's baking in the self. But I'm saying like, you have some understanding of what I mean. You know the concepts I'm employing. Even given the concept is like refers to something fictitious. The same way like if I'm talking to some moral error theorist or something, like they might get the concept of some stance independent reason. But they're still gonna deny it. So it might I'm just trying to motivate you towards that view of the self where you have some understanding of the concept, but you have these pieces of evidence against it actually existing, like stance independently. Or the self-existing stance independently is crazy, but self actually existing, feel like that. So you don't believe that it exists.
Well, if all you're saying is just like, do I get what you're gesturing when you say that thing? Yeah, I'm sure I do. I just don't think there's a consistent rule behind it, right?
I agree there.
Yeah.
I think anyone should agree that there is no consistent view about what constitutes the self being different from something else. The same way there's no clear difference between certain objects and other objects given some rule set. Well, I'm glad we got there to that agreement, and then it gets to distinctions, or I guess whether or not it's okay to refer to fictitious distinctions. And I would just say, okay, there are some distinctions that, although they might be fictitious, I'm still fine with referring to them and fine with talking about them.
You could be fine with referring to them and talking about them, but like if you have some fictitious thing that you're gesturing at, and you're referring to or talking about this, like we'd probably say that you're referring to and talking about some fictitious thing, and your statement itself is going to be like a fictional statement. So like it's only like true in a fictional sense to say Spider-Man shoots webs. In reality, Spider-Man doesn't shoot webs, right? Spider-Man doesn't actually shoot webs. So like it's also not the case that you actually value any aspect of yourself if it's fictitious.
Which I might be fine taking that. Like if I hear another theory say, "Oh, look, I'm utilitarian," like like I think we ought to maximize utility or something. I get what they're saying. Like, not just I get what they're saying, but like, doesn't seem like there's some inconsistency because when they're saying it exists, they're saying it in the sense that's like I said, it's like fictitious. And so I guess I might be doing a similar thing, which is like, yeah, I think even though there's no account of self to be given, like even if there was no like, I'm still pretty sympathetic towards like some form of bundle theory. So even if self doesn't exist or something, I'm okay with referring it to referring to it fictitiously the same way error theorists are going to talk about normative ethics while talking fictitiously as well.
Yeah, but I mean, the error theorist, like if your view is the same as the error theorist, not in like the actual sense, but if your view has like this same aspect of the error theorist, then it would be the case that both you and the error, like if I ask the error theorist, hey, is it really true that it's good to maximize utility? Like the utilitarian error theorist would be like, no, it's a false statement, right? But I'm gonna say it anyway, right? And like, yeah, that would be like your view is false, right? Like if what you're saying, the view is false, then it's just, well, I agree. The view is, I agree. The view is false, right? But if all you mean is just like I'm pretending that it's true, then I would also agree. Yeah, I think you are pretending it's true, and it is false. So we just agree.
Maybe, because maybe I don't know. I'm trying to think of what sense in which I'm like saying it's a fiction. Because here I'm trying to put it this way, like. I mean, maybe it could be something like this. Like, there's some list of because I don't think I'm indexing it to anything independent of conventions. Like, I'm just saying, according to some set of conventions, like these are my desires, and I'm not really saying anything further. I mean, maybe because I could maybe disagree. Like, can I say it's true indexed to some set of conventions or something?
You're saying it's true indexed to some set of conventions?
Yeah. So I'm like,
I don't think I don't think there's any set of conventions where it would be true, because I don't think there's any, like, I mean, you don't think that either, right? Because you don't think there's any rule set that could.
No, by set of conventions I don't mean like some some clear criteria rule set. I just mean like, what would socially, like by conventions I just like sort of mean like what would conventionally be considered to be one self over another self.
Well, I don't. Sorry, when you say conventionally, what do you just mean like what people would call it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if you're just what some people would say, or like what the average person would say, then I think that it's then I think that I'm not entirely sure what the view is. I don't think the average person is referring to anything that's coherent or makes any kind of sense, right? Like in the same way that the average person anything with it, like with like knowledge claims the average person makes, right?
Yeah. Well, barring the question of if it's incoherent, like they do have a concept. Like I think, like for instance, I think this is like with like folk metaethics as well. I think we talked about this, like. The average person is fully capable of engaging in moral discourse and, considering things to be right or wrong, but they might have some like really confused or weird notion of what it means for something to be right or wrong.
Yeah.
There's
there's an example from Joel asking Des, like, what did Joel ask? Joel asked him like the fucking humor question. Just if everyone including you thought it was okay to rape babies, would it be okay to rape babies? And then he answered no, but like the dude's like an anti-realist, and then he's put some thought into being an anti-realist even. So yeah, I think that the average person conception of like metaethics, is gonna be like kind of jibber jabber.
Yeah, which is like, well, it might be that for the self, but like at minimum there is some, but yeah, would at the very least we agree, even though it might be jibber jabber, the average person has some concept of morality, and I think it might be for the self. For the self, it might be some different explanation. Like it's a really vague concept, but yeah, maybe I can avoid an error theory, which is by just saying, well, there's something that would conventionally be considered to be the self, whatever that convention is. That's what my claim is indexed to, and that would be true relative to these conventions.
The issue is I don't think that's true, because we could imagine some counterfactuals where you're like imagine everyone views some clone of you as being the real you, right? And then you come back and you're like, no, I'm the real me, right? Which you'd be like, because you'd probably say something along the lines of, like, I still value the real me, not that fake me that everyone thinks is me, right? So clearly it's not the social convention, which is like what you're like talking about there.
Maybe it would be like maybe it'd be something with like additional information or something, like. Yeah, that sounds like an additional information thing. Like, according to whatever the convention is, if additional information is given, then they would think that it's not. Well, what if?
Well, we could do it even when like, people are just. We could do it to the point where the additional information has to be some like some construct of like what a real you is, independent of everything. So let's imagine that everyone's like just social convention. We imagine a counterfactual where people think you can like reincarnate, and they think that they think that like some random person that's going to be born 100 years from now is going to be the reincarnation of the great Corleone.
Let's go.
True. So like, let's imagine they think like in 1,000 years the great Corleone will be born. Now let's say you don't, you don't think this, but everyone else does, right? Do you think it's the case that you would, because of the fact that everyone else believes this is going to be you would start valuing that?
Oh, I don't know about the start valuing thing. But okay, like this might be in the trivial territory actually, where it might be like, okay, if by this is a self you just mean this is the social convention and this is the social convention, then yeah, I would trivially follow that. If what I meant by the self is just what those people thought, and that is what they thought, then I would be committed to saying, with respect to that standard, that yeah, that would be, it would be me. But maybe, I mean, you could index it to smaller groups. Maybe you could like talk about your individual thoughts or something. But I think that broadly what I'm talking about is captured by current conventions.
Well, if we go with anything other than the individual thoughts, then we can just keep constructing the same hypothetical. Just like imagine it's like just what your family thinks is you, something really, really small, right? Well, now we can imagine like, okay, what about in the counterfactual world? Imagine like this alternative possible world where your family is misled into believing the great Corleone, just your family, and not even like the whole world, just your family. They're just fucking crazy, and they think like the great Corleone is coming back in 1,000 years. Well, is it the case like that would be what you're valuing?
Yeah, well,
seems like not.
Well, the valuing thing, I don't think the valuing thing falls, but it would be. Yeah, this also gets into trivial territory. Like, look, all I mean by X is some person. If all that means is relative to some social conventions, X is considered a person. They consider that person. Then it just follows, given what the terms are made, they would be a person. Yeah, which is like I'm fine with, right? Like I don't know, it's I'm fine with saying because it just sounds like trivially true that that would be a person because those are the standards that are being employed.
Well, yeah, that's what your standard is, right? If that's what your standard is, yeah. But then that seems to be at odds with your description of your view on ethics, because now it doesn't seem like you're saying like all those I statements. It seems like now you're not really talking about that, because it's not the case that you would talk about like your preferences being the things the thing that matters. If what you mean by yours is just what people are calling you, right? Or what people are calling John Corleone. It seems like there are plenty of hypotheticals they could give where your view is like in that counterfactual. You wouldn't like that. Like if they thought that you and some other random individual were both you, right? That's just all what they all like agreed is you, right? According to the social convention. You probably still say like I don't give a fuck about that other person.
I might be able to do the thing that like I did against humor, which is I just say, oh well, yeah. When I'm talking about whether or not I'm a person in this possible world, I'm just talking about current social conventions, or what the actual ones are. Yeah, and given what the actual ones are, like most people would consider that insane.
Given what if you're saying it's given the actual one, then it almost seems like the like what do you mean I didn't eat breakfast, right? Because like the whole point of the counterfactuals is shifts what we treat as the actual, right? So like,
well, I don't think that's what it's doing, because I think like.
What do you think the truth maker for counterfactuals are?
Well, I think this is like, well, this is a weird thing, because I'm not a moto realist, but
neither am I.
Yeah, I don't think there is a truth maker, but like I think this is just an index, right? Like if we index some claim, something, or some proposition, some sentence to like some set of stances, and then it's going to depend on like the details of what the stances are. Right, and so you can say, okay, well, I value these set of stances like at time t in the actual world, like whatever you call the list you want. And if you posit something that's different about it, well, then it's just not the same, and there's now it's being indexed to something different.
So now, yeah, I understand now. So if you're saying like by the actual world, you're not saying like that's what it means, right? You're saying that like, there is you're saying if it was the case that you had access to the actual world, that would be the word set you'd swap, right? Like you'd imagine this big list of like, words that describe the neurological states of all the people in the actual world, and that's what you're talking about. Right? When whatever lights up the self region of their brain is what you're talking about when you talk about John Corleone, right? Whatever lights up the John Corleone section of their brain.
That's correct.
That I think is a view that it would be a view that if you held it, it wouldn't run into the same issue. But the issue is you definitely don't hold it because you have no idea what's going on inside their brain. You don't have a single clue.
I don't
what the
think I
fuck.
have to make that strong. Well, no, I don't think I have to make that strong of a claim. Like, I think you can talk about conventions without having that much.
I agree. You could talk about conventions, but you can't say it's the case that you hold the view such that it's. Oh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's true.
Wait, okay. Well, this might just be weird because, like, I think I have access to conventions people have around like certain movies or something like that. Like,
Mhm.
you know, most people like Star Wars or something. But I don't think I like to say in the actual world, people like Star Wars or something like that. I need access to like what fucking lights up in like the specific regions of their brain or something.
No. I didn't mean something that specific. I mean that like you can describe what it means for the actual person to like Star Wars. Right? You could describe that. You could be there instead of saying the actual person likes Star Wars. There's some other set of words you could swap in there, or some, maybe if you can't say it with words, there's some other concept. I'm telling you, you don't even have the concept of whatever the fuck that other person's self. Right? You don't have the concept of the average self or the colloquial self.
Oh, well, I do think I have the concept that people currently have, but yeah, might just be some empirical dispute. I mean, yeah,
it is, and I think we have empirics that we could point to.
Yeah, well, yeah, that I don't have the concept of the self that most people currently have, or actually have.
Well, both. That you don't have the concept, and that you don't have the like not that you don't have the concept, as in you don't have anything you're gesturing at, but like that there's not a concept, like that there's also not a consistent rule set. So like it kind of just kicks the can on the road, right? Like if it's the case, there's not a consistent rule set for you. There's probably not a consistent rule set for them when they're describing you.
Well,
right?
yeah, I don't think there are.
Yeah, so there's.
Like, I don't think there's a consistent rule set for like standards of like subtle standards of like approval and disapproval a lot of the time. Yeah, but I don't think there has to be a rule set to talk about some convention.
Well, the issue is we're not talking about the convention anymore, right? What we're talking about is we're not talking about the convention in like the sense of it being a convention. What we're now talking about is like, the actual convention itself. So it's almost like a kind of not. It's not a use mention, but it's kind of like a use mention distinction. So it's like what we're talking about is no longer the no longer just like whatever people view that convention as being in like the sense of having that as a placeholder, because in the counterfactuals it's the case that that's changed, right? What we're talking about is the underlying convention itself, such that it couldn't change the such that it couldn't change the counterfactual.
Okay, yeah. When I say, well, yeah, I think people not having a consistent rule set is consistent with them having the same concept as me. Like, I take it that having successful communication or something is like evidence for some sufficiently shared concept, at the very least.
Well, it sounds like now we're back to the fictional territory.
I don't know about that. I think we're just saying this is like people conventionally consider to be something. And then yeah. But just real quick before we move to that, though, like we agree that at minimum there's some sufficiently shared concept for communication that people currently have of like you versus me or something like that.
Can you say that one more time?
Some sufficiently sort of shared like concept of like you or me, so that we can communicate successfully. There's some like convention there, even if it's not like a consistent rule set.
Well, if by communicate successfully, you just mean that like we're able to gesture at things together, then yeah, I think so. If we communicate successfully, some actual true thing is being described, then I don't think so.
Well, I don't know about truth. Yeah. So okay, well we'll just say okay, we agree there's some actual convention currently exists. When I'm making the claim, I'm just talking about that. So like given all the information would be according to whatever kind of standards are considered a self. And I mean I don't really.
Well, I don't think there's a share. I don't think it's really shared, but I think there's like maybe it's close enough. Yeah, it's close enough. Yeah, it's like close enough so that you and another person can like you can plan out behavior and actions as a group.
Sort of like moral discourse. Yeah, we're like we don't. But yeah, we can still communicate. Okay, yeah. So okay. So yeah, then if figure there's convention, I'm just indexing it to that, and then I guess I wouldn't be interested in like giving some more elaborate account because I think all of them fail. I think we agree that all the more elaborate accounts fail. So okay, I guess what you'd say is like, well, I don't really care about what the conventional concept is. Like, I don't think it's consistent, and I would just say, oh well, that's probably true. I'm just gonna use it anyways. I think that's it. Wait one second. Okay, I gotta go in a sec, but
Okay.
is there a further thing? Because I think that might actually be the resolution.
If that's the resolution, it's not clear to me that what you're saying is able to be true then. But if you're just saying like, yeah, I'm just using it to like, gesture, like it might not be true. But I think it gets the point across. I don't think that's false. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, well, true relative to the conventions, right? But like,
I don't. The issues I don't think there's. Well, the issues I don't think they can be true relative to those conventions. I don't think things can be true relative to inconsistent conventions. It's like, what about like if I asked you like, is this statement true relative to like all of the axioms of set theory, right? And the answer is no, of course not. No statement is true according to all of them. But if I ask you, like, is it true according to one particular axioms of set theory, like maybe ZFC or something? Then the answer is like, yeah, now things can be true.
Well, yeah,
right?
relative to the sufficiently shared concept, right? Like whatever that shared space is, I think something can be true or false there, right?
I'm not sure.
Unless you're going to say that's inconsistent, I'm going to say, maybe I don't know if I take the view that like just say that there is some contradiction. Okay, well, I'm not sure if I think contradictions are truth apt, and I think if I'm referring to some convention and that convention has some contradiction, then I think that contradiction can be true just relative to the conventions, right? Like if I'm saying
what if the convention is one where like I guess if the convention is one where contradictions are entailed, I would say it's the case that you have other conventions such that it would make that false. And when I say something's false, right, one of the things which is sufficient for something to be false is to be contradictory.
Maybe I'm not sure. This would get into the empirical question about whether or not there is some inconsistency. I don't think there's an inconsistency in like some straightforward logical contradiction because I don't know. I think I mean maybe you could get some contradiction if you asked people like, what do you think? Like you gave them some like list of what are those? What is it called? Oh yeah, multiple choice question where do you think the self is determined by A, memories, B, psychological community, C, whatever. You got some contradiction there, but what was I going to say? Oh yeah, but I mean, I think if you take particular cases or something rather than asking people for principles, which is what I think should do in gauging people's thoughts, then I don't think you would see straightforward contradictions. I don't think you do get straightforward contradictions if it's just from particular cases. Unless someone says yes and no in the same case, which I don't think would be.
If that's what you mean by straightforward contradiction, I think there are things that just entail straightforward contradictions, right? Or what I would call like things that are necessarily contradictory, things that I'd call straightforward contradictions because they're just going to deductively entail some contradiction. I think that's you can get those from particular cases pretty easy. And I think from principles you can get those pretty easily as well with the average person's view on basically most things because people are like really bad at being consistent. What's actually really funny is if you ask, I'm not sure if you've heard this, but if somebody says some position, right, and you wait like an hour, then go and you ask them for the justification of like why they said like the total negation of the position, just pretend that they said it. They'll give you a justification for why they said it most of the time, and be able to come up with kind of like seemingly good reasons for why they believe the polar opposite of some view. So I think that on principle people are likely to have contradictions just because people are bad at being consistent.
Wait, sorry. Okay, one last thing I was going to say is what was it? Fuck. Oh yeah. So like I said, unless you try to extract principles from the particular cases, I don't think you are getting contradictions. I think we might agree there. like if we just take the particulars alone, there's not going to be one. Maybe when people try to account for why they chose those particulars, then you're going to start getting like, tons of contradictions, right? And then you can give them more and more cases, and the principles fall apart, and they don't know what's happening. Which is like why I think when determining conventions, I just go with the particulars, because I think people are bad for accounting for why convention is there.
So I think that if I thought you were saying the opposite, that you were saying you like don't take their particulars, you just take the principles.
Oh no.
Yeah. Okay. If you're saying you take their particulars, I think it's the case that you probably will find a lot of people who, if you ask them like issues that are like imagine you at the beginning and the end of a test, you ask them some particular case that's like likely to confuse them, right, and make them like kind of confused about if they're gonna answer yes or no, and then they like make a decision finally after like a lot of deliberation. I think if you ask them that at the beginning of the test, right, then you take the test card away, you ask them that again at the end of the next test card. I think you'll find a lot of people are likely to contradict themselves, and if you ask like instead of asking one, you ask like 3 different ones like that at the beginning and 3 different ones at the end, you'll probably get most people contradicting themselves on the particular case. Like
yeah. Well, upon reflection, I think it's a bit different, but I think like there's barring cases where it's upon reflection, because I don't think upon reflection is an issue. Like in cases where it's like I don't like if you give someone the teletransporter case or something on a multiple choice like test, you're not going to bubble in like yes and no for it, right?
They're not going to bubble in yes and no on the
like
same
later,
line, but but they will if they forget that they answered the question.
Yeah, they might be a similar case. Yeah, which is where, which is like I just take that to be like some case where someone reflects about it or something.
Oh, I wasn't. Yeah, no, I wasn't even saying like I wasn't even saying some similar case. I'm saying the exact same one. Like if you like read out the exact same test question. Right, they might have forgotten what their answer was.
At the beginning, and then give them a bunch of questions about then that would be upon reflection, their answer changing. Which I wouldn't say that's. So I mean, maybe I just say like, okay, I just probably wouldn't count the first one for gauging what people think. Like I'd say, okay, well, you reflected about it and come to a different answer. We'll just take that answer.
Well, let's say that you asked them the question at the beginning of the year, right? They haven't thought much about it afterwards, right? Then maybe maybe even give them more time in the first case, right? They spend more time thinking about it, and then. Like in the second case, it's like I don't know, like a year down the line or something, and you ask the person the same question. I think it's pretty likely that they like on the same particular case, right? They're still likely in a case like this to answer the 2 questions differently. And if you have enough of these questions you're throwing at them, even giving them the exact same test, it's likely to be the case they're gonna like answer differently.
Maybe. Maybe I could do something like this where I could say, okay, there's certain cases where there's not as clear of a social convention or something. Like, okay, obviously there's some overdetermination cases where we're not getting any contradictions at all, right? Like, like cases where someone's like, oh well, you're different from me, and me and you are different from that person, or something like that. But there are some edge cases like the teletransporter case that they'll weird people out. Maybe you could say something like, oh well, there's just not a clear answer in those cases. Yeah, it's not clear what the concept is there. I'd be happy with saying that it's just like this controversial, sort of ambiguous thing.
Well, if you're just saying it sounds like then what you're just saying, like what you're calling the self is there's not a convention based on rules. There's like a convention based on a bunch of particular.
Based on rules. Yeah.
Yeah, but if that's what you say, then the issue is that like if people haven't been presented with some particular, then it's the case there's no convention there.
Well, no, you could give a case where like there's certain things that people would be expected to say if you gave them a particular, right? Like, where there's certain cases where like let's say I took this. Let's say I saw someone. I showed like we could give this hypothetical, okay? Where it's like
wait, but it's not indexed to the actual anymore.
Well, no, we're talking about like what like person would answer upon being received it. Like according to the current conventions, what people would think upon being given this. Like if like now we went up to the average person, okay, and we're like, hey, you should check out this new movie. We're gonna show you this new movie, and they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. And it's just like someone getting fucking brutally tortured to death.
Yeah.
And that's just it. Like, okay, they're probably not gonna like it. They're probably gonna disapprove of it. Yeah, and that's according to the current convention. I think, like according to the current convention, like if we just took an average person, that's what they'll probably do. And so I think you can do that for cases of selves. Like I think, they're like most people probably haven't been presented with a particular case of me and you, but I think if they're presented with me and you, they'd say, oh, yeah, these are two different people.
Yeah, so you're saying like, but then it seems like you're saying if they were presented with that, so it's no longer the actual anymore, right? You're now talking about some hypothetical person.
No, I'm saying the actual. So just taking the actual conventions and applying it to this hypothetical case.
Yeah, but there aren't like an actual convention. It's not like an actual convention, right? There's like because there's not like an actual rule set. What we're talking about when we see the actual convention ended up just being people's particulars.
Well, no, so they have. Oh yeah, wait, this is weird. So maybe we can disentangle this. So they have some concept. The concept is based on these particular cases, right? That's like what forms it. Obviously, like the concept isn't just identical to all the particular cases, but like that's sort of just what forms it. And then you could just say, okay, well, taking this concept that's usually held, putting it in this case, like this would fall under the concept. But obviously, the concept isn't just identical to whatever the particulars are. It's just what forms the concept.
Yeah, but what if we're talking about what forms the concept? Well, sorry, what are we saying forms the concept? The particulars? So, because you're saying it's not identical to the particulars, right? What is the concept?
By forms, yeah. So just to be clear, so by forms the concept, I mean like what causes people to have this concept that they have. Like I think like the concept of a chair or something like that. This probably doesn't have a clear rule set behind it. Right? People probably look at particular cases to form the concept. I wouldn't say the concept is like identical to those particular cases, like just a set of all the instantiations or something, right? Like, because I could give someone a hypothetical, like I give them this, right? Like, suppose an object is in front of you and it has 4 legs and it has a backrest, and you can sit on it. Okay, well, or like or just give some like case of like, or obviously not that case. Let's just take a case of like I come up with some chair that like nobody has thought of before, just like fucking wild chair. Okay. And well, I think that would even though no one's encountered that case, we'd be able to say like it would fall under the conventional concept or something like that. Or said like imagine this fucking like 300 million yard chair, okay, that can like fit the entire human race on it and shit like that. You just fucking posit all these like wild conditions. Like, would it still be a chair? I think you could say according to the convention answer would be yeah.
So what I'm trying to, I guess what I'm not sure about is what is the convention? What are we when we say the convention? What are we talking about? Are we talking about? We're not talking about people's particulars. It seems like, right? We're not talking about some rule set. I don't know. What are we talking about when we talk about the convention?
Well, so I take it that like there's the sufficiently shared concept that people have when they communicate, and then the particulars are just giving the explanation for why people have this sufficiently shared concept.
Sorry, say that one more time.
So we have this concept that's like sufficiently shared when people communicate, and by sufficiently shared, I just mean shared enough so that they can talk to each other and gesture towards the same thing, whatever. And then we're just trying to give an account about what forms the concept or something, or what explains why we have this concept. I'm just saying, well, particular cases explain it, right? And then I was adding in the caveat that like the concept isn't just the set of all the particulars. The concept is just explained by people looking at particulars, right, and sort of forming it. But it's not the case that like it is, like I said, the set of all the particulars.
Okay, not the set of all particulars. What you'd say instead is like there. It seems like I don't know. Then it seems like there's like maybe a deeper rule set that we just don't have access, like can't communicate in language or something that we don't have access to.
Yeah, maybe that's true.
If that's the case, there is some like deeper. What it seems like is just seems like it would just seem odd that this would just track almost like identically in the real world onto things which have like genetic similarity to us.
Well, yeah, I'm agnostic on if there actually is a rule set. I'm genuinely not sure. Like, but I mean, yeah, just say that there is. So okay.
Yeah, hold on, shut up.
Anyways, just so I mean, just be agnostic on whether or not there is a rule set or whatever. I'll just say okay, whatever that's capturing is what I'm talking about. Something like that. I'll make this conditional too. So if there's some contradiction in the rule set, I'd probably like I don't know if I'd fully get rid of it. I'd probably just like amend it a bit or something. Just like take out some condition or whatever. But if there is no rule set, then It's not clear that there is some incoherency, at the very least, or at least upon reflection, something like that. And so then, okay, there is some shared concept, just formed based on the particulars.
Well, the issue is I'm not even sure what it would mean for there to be a concept if it's neither the case that we're talking about some set of things, right, or it's the case that we're talking about some rule set. So I'm not able to get a grasp for that. But if it's like if the alternative, like granting that, like maybe just granting there is a rule set, then the issue I'm having there is just it's probably not the case that anything is described by that rule set, since it seems to just mostly just track on to like, things which are genetically similar to us, right? So they still run back to the Evo debunking thing, right? There'd be like good reason to have the fiction.
Yeah, that's explaining. Yeah, we're just explaining why the convention's there. It's like, okay, I'm fine with explaining why the convention's there. My claim could still be true relative to conventions, but I think the more interesting part is like the thing that's like, okay, if it's not a rule set, it's not particulars. What is it? And then I'm like, I'm just not sure. It's just like probably a cluster concept. Like I think that the concept of a chair is like we agree like doesn't have some clear rule set describing it, and neither is it identical to like people. What's conventionally considered a chair. Neither is that identical to considering every single particular case. So it's not clear what that's describing. But I would say there is that concept.
Well, I would say with the chair, right? With a chair example, there probably is a rule set. It's not you don't like check it for necessary and sufficient conditions, but instead the rule set is like it's a thing which is occurring in the brain, right? The rule set's doing its rules in the brain. It's not the case that you're checking the rule set. So the chair, I'd say something like there is like this set of things that I've heard described as a chair in the past, and all of these things that I've heard described as chair. There are certain things which seem to be, which I think I've learned are the important thing, and if it's similar to the existing set of chairs, with the in terms of the right kinds of attributes, then it's a chair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the big one is the look.
Can I say something for the self, which is like, it's conventionally considered to be this, like, talking about what's like similar to these conventions or whatever, whether or not something could fit under. Like my impression of what the conventions are, stuff like that.
Is this a debate?
Not really. It's more like a conversation. It's a peaceful conversation.
Can I add in then?
No. I want to finish up. So because Corlini has been like forced to sit here through like the I don't know what to call it, like
Erik.
the epilogue. With the chair example, I don't think you can give a similar kind of thing to a self, because I think that there are things that we called a self, right? But if I give you some new example of a self, right, and I give you some new example of a chair, I think there are going to be differences in how you interpret those. So I think in the case of like the chair, we can say like there's like resemblance to the other chair. But I think it's the case that we can say there's somebody who resembles you in all of the kind of ways that are like important, but wouldn't be you, right? I don't think we could do that with a chair, right? We couldn't imagine we couldn't imagine like an identical, something identical to my computer chair that isn't a computer chair.
Well, by talking about being me, I
A
was
drawing of it.
Okay, I think there might be some weird thing on like the thing that it's resembling. I was saying it like resembles whether or not some object counts as a self. That would just be whether or not it sort of fits under the general resembles, or it's under the same. It's like the Wittgenstein thing again. Fucking family resemblance. Family resemblance. Yeah, if there's like family resemblance to the conventional concept or whatever, that's what I'd be talking about. So I mean, if like let's take it that there's an identical clone of me. I mean, it resembles me, but it doesn't resemble what most people would consider to be me. Like they would say, that's just a different version of you, something like that. Like it's like you too, or something like that. Like that's Jonathan Corlini too.
Yeah, but if I ask you what's different about you in that thing, right? You can maybe give me some traits. Like, oh, I was born first, and that was made in a lab. But like, let's imagine there's like some situation where you are. Like we just imagine the branch line case, right? So like, let's imagine you're going across a teletransporter, right? It's like we take your atoms, we get rid of all of them, and we pop you up in the other place. Do you think it's the case that thing's still you, or is it not clear to you if it's you or not?
I haven't reflected on the teletransporter case enough.
So just in you're just in the case of like the teletransportation. That's already to you unclear if it's you or not, right?
Yeah, I haven't thought about it enough. I'm
So-
leaning towards saying it's a different version.
A different version of you.
Yeah.
So it would still be
It's
you,
like-
but it would be a different version of you.
Well, not literally. It's like me. It's like a second version of me or something like that. Like
So it's not like
something
really you.
That's not like me, literally. It's just like
Mhm.
yeah. Like when I say
Okay.
it's like a different version of me, it's a stand for saying it's like very, very similar to me, but not identical.
Yeah, if that's the case, that's really strange to me because in the branch line case, I have like or in just the teletransported case, I have a different intuition than you. But we could go backwards then, right?
Mhm.
Usually, what we do is we go like in one direction. We can go the opposite direction. I think it kind of works for the a problem with the view. So
Mhm.
like if that's unclear to you, maybe we could say something like if let's imagine that you're just through like quantum effects, instead of there being one you, right? Let's imagine there's like some quantum magic happens, and now now instead of you walking forward and like 3 degrees to the left, you've walked forward 3 degrees to the left and also 3 degrees to the right, right? And there's like it was the same set of original atoms, but now there's like now the atoms have all duplicated through like quantum effect. Is it the case that you think there are two U's there, or is there one U?
I'm leaning towards there being one me.
So there's one U, yeah. But which one of those? Which one? Like, do we have any kind of reason to think one of those is you and one of those isn't?
I'm not sure what it is. It's just intuition. It's not really some explanation.
Yeah, but it seems like there's an intuition that there's only one you there, right? But it seems like there couldn't be only one you there. That's strange because there's not going to be any kind of check. The criteria for what you is.
Well, this might be some divergent intuition, but I think most people would say that there still is one me. But maybe that's wrong.
I'm not sure what most people's intuitions would be. But it seems like if there's any criteria at all, it doesn't seem like there's any possible criteria that one would fit and not the other, unless you think that part of your criteria of the self is moving left versus right, and it doesn't seem like that's the case because you wouldn't be able to tell me which one's which.
Yeah,
it seems like you know all of the facts.
There is a rule set.
Yeah, it seems like so. It seems like from this, it's probably not the case that you should be agnostic, but instead that you should think there isn't a rule.
Yeah, maybe that's like a piece of evidence against it. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I am leaning towards there being no rule set, but it's like,
well, if it's
in principle possible for their doing.
Well, if it's the case that there is no rule set, and also it's not defined by the particular, then I'm not even sure what the convention is. Right? That's strange to me.
Then,
yeah.
Yeah. Then that's gonna. Yeah, that's just gonna be the same thing that I have for like the concept of truth. Then, which is like, I don't know. There's not some rule set for what's conventionally considered to be true, and also, again, it's not just particular cases. So then it's like, okay, well, is there a convention for what's considered to be true?
I don't know. Probably not. But I think that there's some like non-conventional thing that it can mean for something to be true.
I don't know. I'm just talking about conventional ways.
Yeah.
Like what's conventionally considered to be true? Yeah.
Yeah. There probably isn't a conventional. There really isn't a convention for truth. I think that people are they diverge too much.
Okay, maybe this might just be us. Fuck, this might be another verbal dispute of like us meaning something different by convention. Then, okay, I'm trying to think about this. So, because by convention, I just mean this like sufficiently shared concept people have. I mean, because I think we agree there is a sufficiently shared concept. It sounds like we're not agreeing on if there's a convention.
If all you mean is there's a sufficiently shared concept and sufficient for the goal of communicating, and I'm not sure what we're saying for the goal of for the goal of communicating what, that's gonna be weird.
There's communicating about like people doing good or bad things, having certain character, like making accomplishments or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not. That's a little strange to me. For like them doing good or bad things and that being true, or did them doing good and bad things and that being like, maybe that's kind of like a side issue. It's not really important. Yeah. Yeah. So if we're just saying there's like a sufficiently shared concept, then it's not clear to me. Well, I don't know. When we say a concept, what are we talking about there?
I'm not sure if I could reduce that. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's reducible. trying to think if there is a way to reduce that.
Because what I think of when I'm thinking concepts, I think of those in terms of like kind of like some kind of rule, like an attribute.
Wait, what does that mean?
Like I think the
He's just gonna like unmute and just gonna say it's like a unity of concretes. Let's go.
What does what mean? It being in terms of rules?
Yeah. Like.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't. I'm not tracking.
Yeah. So there's gonna be some kind of set of conditions for they were talking about when we have some kind of concept, some like sets of conditions. So
Yeah,
I can say there's like
we just have a different concept of what a concept is.
They have a different concept. I'm saying there's like key attribute pairs or like key value pairs. ASIAs. That's what I'm talking about when I say like a concept.
Okay. Do you have a sense of what I'm talking about? If not, I need to think about how to communicate that.
I think that maybe like I get the intuition, but I would think this is what it is, right? So I guess not. Like if that's not what you think it is, then I probably don't.
Wait, what do you guys even disagree? I think it might just
well, we're trying to
disagree only in like semantically.
Well, I think we do, but if there's no semantics here, then like trying to think of how I would communicate my view. There's like not a shared word to do it. Yeah, I'm honestly not sure how concepts can be reduced at all. I think there are concepts that don't have some rule set to them. Like I said, like truth. I don't think it has a rule set. I'm gonna say there's a concept of truth.
I'm not sure. I think there are rule sets that we could give. Those would be concepts, but I'm not sure that there is a. I'm not sure there really is a concept of truth without a rule set.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Wait, Sinthe.
This might be a back to the drawing board, and we'll like. I mean, you've said a couple times you've got stuff to do. So if you want, I'll put a pin in this, and we can like figure out how to communicate.
Get me out
We can get the concept. we can figure out the concept.
Has Ash debated Sinthe yet or no?
No.
I don't think so.
Let's get a little capitalism debate going on here.
A capitalism debate? Is ASIAS not?
So I was gonna go to eat lunch. I'm debating you while I'm eating lunch.
Oh shit!
Jesus Christ. Anyways, I'm gonna just listen. Then I'm gonna finish eating lunch, and then I'm gonna finish my econ homework.
Okay. Is ACS a capitalist?
Yeah.
But I don't care.
Okay.
Right. I'm actually really interested in this because apparently, like, Owen thinks I'm insane.
Well, I'm interested. Owen's not even NVC, right? You're tilting at windmills. I'm interested in figuring out why you're a capitalist.
Well, then I don't care.
You don't care why you're a capitalist? Usually people care about their own motivations. Okay. I figure that's almost like tautological. Like what else could you care about?
Wait, right. Okay, so like let's say that we have like a set of priorities of like topics you're interested in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these like set of priorities change over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like to me like arguing about capitalism is just like it's just not interesting right now. Especially when like I'm still like really confused on like what a concept, like having a rule set, like would refer to.
Yeah, well, so that might be a really interesting discussion, the hashing out of the concept. But for some reason, I feel like capitalism is just more relevant. I don't know, it just feels like the kind of thing that has impact on people's lives.
Do you think that us discussing it would have an actual like impact on someone's life?
Yes, us discussing capitalism, of course.
Whose life?
Either of ours, and also the lives of people we affect.
Okay. So.
Yeah. The concept, it's not even clear to me that discussing the concept is going to have an impact on either of our lives, other than the fact that we've discussed it. Like, we could discuss any topic in that place, right? Like, we can discuss, like, I don't know, some weird esoteric, I don't know, we could do, like, some weird esoteric particular deflationist view, right? And I feel like that would have, like, slightly more impact on us than figuring out the concept. But capitalism, on the other hand, that's going to change that's at least going to change my voting patterns.
Oh wait, it's not like figuring out. I just like, I don't know like what it means for like someone to not take my view, right? And I just had like no, because I was like I wasn't deafened, but I wasn't here for like most of the conversation between you and Erik. So like I don't know if it was like in reference to me discussing with Owen, or if we just like happened to be discussing like the same things at the same time.
So I was in terms of the concept. That was from my discussion with Eric. I don't know. Maybe it was the case that you guys like branched off from that, but I have no idea. But no, I feel like we can both be relatively certain that like one of these things is likely to have like an impact. At least if you vote. I'm not sure. Do you vote?
No.
Okay. Well, I vote, so it's gonna have at least an impact on other people's lives through that.
Oh, wait. Do you? Okay. Wait. This is just gonna be like. I don't actually think like in one single Discord conversation I can like persuade you, or that you can persuade me.
That's strange. I think I've talked to a lot of people who have changed at least some aspects of their beliefs. But I'm not even sure what your view is on capitalism. So I'm not sure if it's the case that like you have some motivation that's sane and is like I could compel towards other things, or if maybe you just have like some kind of like insane motivation where it's just like you just have like some kind of like NAP or something you believe in. In which case I could at least convince the other people in the room not to hold your view. Right? I think you could at least like there are a lot of people who can be agnostic on it. Yeah, I believe in like so I'm in favor of socialism, and you said you're a capitalist, right? I think that it was Mustafa who said that.
Yeah, that's Mustafa. But what do you mean when you say socialism?
Is Mustafa correct?
Depends on what you take capitalist to be.
Well, I wouldn't. I think it would depend on what Mustafa
sounded.
Well, yeah, I just take capitalism as private control over the means of production, and I think that socialism is democratic control over the means of production.
So you'd be in favor of like worker co-ops?
I think that worker co-ops are okay, but I'm in favor of social wealth funds.
I'm in favor of
centralized
autocracy.
Wait.
So that just sounds like what?
Funds, is that just like a social welfare state? Or am I like
no?
What you mean there?
Yeah, you're misunderstanding. Do you know what an index fund is?
Go ahead and explain it.
So, look, just imagine, like, if you don't know what an index fund is, then it's not going to be easy to explain it through the lens of an index fund. But just imagine the government. Do you know what a hedge fund is?
Yeah.
Okay, like imagine the government has a hedge fund and is democratically controlled by the people.
Okay, wait. If the government has a hedge fund and it's controlled by the people, that just sounds like a direct democracy with taxes. Like
a direct democracy with taxes?
Yeah. So like I just take hedge fund to be like.
Hold on, why is it? Why is it direct democracy? That's strange.
Well, when you say like controlled by the people, that's kind of what I assumed.
You don't think the democratic republics are controlled by the people?
Not in as direct of a sense as direct democracy, but that's like besides the point.
Well, I think the idea is totally consistent with like a democratic republic. Like I'm in favor of autocracy, but like I feel like you don't have to be on board with autocracy to be on board with.
It's consistent, right? But like the interesting part of what I said still hasn't gotten answered. So like,
what was the interesting?
When you say hedge funds, all I imagine is like pulling money from people to invest in like other projects, right?
Sort of. Yeah, you're getting close.
It sounds like a government that would tax and then move the tax dollars to like other programs.
Well, you're thinking of state-owned enterprise, right? It sounds like what you're saying. So if you're just talking about like just funding through the buying up of shares, right? Just the funding through the buying up of shares, then yeah, I'm in favor of the government buying up shares.
Okay, wait. Maybe like this would just like give me a clearer idea, because I feel like I'm getting lost in the weeds here. Like what differences would a nation make in order to move to like a social category?
Sorry, let me say that last part of the sentence again. I didn't hear you over the coughing piece of shit.
Please, just serve me till next time.
Oh my god.
Like what changed like for the United States, right? What would change like policy wise for the United States to like no longer be capitalist and turn socialist in your view?
So I think that one would just be implementing a social wealth fund. That's one policy. So if you want to take a look at countries that have implemented these, you can take a look at Norway. They have a relatively large one. Theirs is mostly in terms of buying foreign capital. They also have one that buys buys capital within the country, but it's much smaller. But like you could take a look at the implementation of this particular, and I think we could do a similar thing here in the U.S. Obviously, instead of using oil reserves like they did, I think we could fund it through taxation. That would be one way. Getting a social wealth fund here. Once we have like a large social wealth fund, I think making sure that we buy out, like a large, maybe a large majority of the U.S. economy, and then leaving the remainder to be controlled by like things like state-owned enterprise. That's probably the approach.
Okay, so we have like a publicly owned like pool of money, and then we use that to sort of like buy out businesses.
Well, if you want to call it like buying,
understanding.
as long as we're doing it through like a social wealth fund model and not through like state-owned enterprise, then yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't even know. I don't even know if I disagree with this.
You said we couldn't convert you. You said we couldn't convert you to socialism.
No,
Here
it's not that like you can.
we call him Communist Asiai.
Wait, I'm definitely not gonna be some sort of communist, right? But like,
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Well, I actually
We'll figure
believe that like me becoming a communist is a contradiction of my identity.
I'm not sure if that's true.
Well, you don't have to, right? Because you don't know what my identity is.
Neither do you. Who knows?
I think I know what my identity is. But
I'm not sure that's true.
Well, you're wrong.
So, ACS, can I ask you one?
I think you're wrong. No, Jesse, stop. Jesse.
Please,
We're off topic enough. We have to get it back on topic. Okay.
Ace, please.
So you don't disagree with the social wealth fund stuff?
Not the way I'm imagining it going down.
Okay. Do you have a disagreement with like?
I might just like be imagining it in like just like the same way, or the same reason why I'd be advocating for like a social democracy.
You'd imagine in the same way that you imagine a social democracy?
Yeah, except for like maybe like state-owned enterprises, but like just like if the government like wants to tax people, right? People decide that the best way to use like the tax money is to like buy out companies. Or like buy companies and like I don't know, turn them into like just state-owned enterprises. Like, actually, well, I'd probably have like some issue in terms of like maybe how like state-owned enterprises might like run, but like in principle, I don't know how this would be like. I don't know. Maybe I'd like place a value on like democracy. Like if people choose it, I don't see like an issue.
Okay, well that's strange. Wait, Mustafa? What the fuck?
Straight. Wait.
The reason is I'll explain you why straight. Mustafa, what the fuck did you tell me this guy was a capitalist?
This guy had the capitalist role in the other server, man. He's also been defending like the ECP.
I'm actually Mustafa,
No way was he defending the ECP. No way was he defending the ECP.
Yeah, wait, Ash, don't you think it's like a valid critique?
Depends on what we mean by valid.
Yeah, I'm like throwing. Like,
I don't know if it's like
something to the wound, Mustafa. Salt to the wound, fire to
Mustafa,
the.
let me like help you out, right? I don't know if it's like an interesting critique.
I don't think it's something that gives us good reason to not be socialist. I don't think that's true. I think it's. I also don't think it's true. There even is a problem with economic calculation. I think all the fucking ECP evidence has been retarded. Or our word, I should say. Gotta not be able to.
Well, like, I don't know, cause I don't know, like, what issue you have with like the ECP.
Well, one is I've seen some of the arguments against computability from the ECP crowd, and those are really dumb. Like one guy I forget what his name is. Not Lionheart, something with an L.
No, it is Lionheart, actually.
Oh, is it?
Lionheart. You don't like that paper?
That's the fucking one who like mentioned the top 500 as like an index like computing power, right?
It was Engelhart, right?
Engelhart. That is Engelhart. Thank you. That is Engelhart.
Something like that.
More like Engelfart. That's what I'm talking about. That paper sucked.
That's not even talking.
We need to get Andrew Bunk Ontology in here so he can tell us all about stocks.
True. No, I just think any fucking argument about the computability, about the computability shit is just super fucking stupid. I feel like that's a weird lens for the ECP people to look at. Because, look, if you're going with like a fucking top 500 supercomputer, the issue is the power of the top 500 supercomputers is going to be like less than 1% of the total computing power in the US. It's going to be like a fucking microscopic amount of computing power just in the US alone. And like, if you just take fucking point of sale systems, you'd have more computing power, well, on just like POS systems than you do over like the entirety of the top 500 supercomputers, right? So it's just fucking insane to use that as like your measure.
I don't even know, like, in the discussion about economic calculation problem, like how bringing up computers would even be like interesting.
Well, the reason is like there are different ideas of the economic calculation problem. Some of which talk about like this practical issue with computability, and some of them talk about this like weird epistemic issue, which is like I just think that's kind of like just obviously not going to be true.
I actually think you're talking about like two completely different arguments there.
Those are two completely different arguments. Both of them are called the ECP.
Well, I actually don't know about that. I think you might be just conflating like Hayekian knowledge and like Mises's calculation problem.
So what do you take the calculation problem to be?
So, just that there's no sort of like common denominator of how to analyze certain factors of production, if not for like price.
Yeah, so why do you think it's the case that you can't analyze it through means other than price?
Wait, I don't know if like you can't analyze it through other means. Like I know people like some people might even like just say that even simple like input output tables could like help you solve for this. If like resources used.
I don't know if I'd use IO tables.
Well, you might not, right? But like.
Yeah, but I think obviously you can do it through non-price
means. Do you recognize that like? I don't know. It just seems weird because it seems like when some people say like ECP, they're actually talking about like two completely different issues.
Well, that's because there's multiple different economic calculation problems that people invoke in the literature. The paper that goes over computability is going to be retarded because it's just wrong on the empiric. The argument that you're currently making, which is like the normal Mises calculation problem, is also going to be retarded because there's obviously just no good reason to believe that it's only going to be the case that you can measure like the values of goods in terms of prices. Obviously, you can do that through other means. Obviously, you can do it through IO tables. Obviously, you can do it through like you can even just offsort it entirely. Offload. I can't speak. Jesus. Offload the job entirely. Not do it through any kind of like data constructs, but instead just respond to demand directly through some kind of, instead of having like prices, instead of having like bidding through a non-price system, and then having like an AGI in the middle that sorts out like it's what. So there's like a lot of different approaches you can use that they're all kind of like fine approaches.
Maybe I'm like just lacking because it's been like I think a couple years since I've like read the literature on the ECP. I don't know how like just saying that like, oh yeah, we could use like demand as like a common denominator is actually going to be addressing the ECP.
Well, so it's not we're not using demand as a common denominator. What we're doing is using demand, and then having the actual common denominator found by some kind of like maximizer, and then it can have some like Mesa optimizer or something that then finds out the common denominator. And there's no reason we'd have to do it at all.
Okay.
And that's totally consistent with a priceless system.
I don't know, maybe I'm like understanding.
Your audio went out there at the end.
Yo, Sinthe.
What's up?
Does he think it's wrong to fuck Renee Baby?
What do you take capitalism to be?
Private control over the means of production.
Right, but and are you fine with that?
No, I don't like that.